The day after I announced my engagement, my father offered my fiancé a vice president's title, a six-figure salary, and a corner office if he would marry my younger sister instead. I did not learn about the offer from my fiancé. I learned about it because my father's assistant placed the wrong envelope in the wrong file. That may sound like a small mistake. In my line of work, small mistakes are where the truth usually enters. At the time, I was 41 years old and worked as a corporate records manager for a regional insurance company. I maintained licensing files, board resolutions, regulatory correspondence, ownership disclosures, and the kind of paper trails most people never thought about until a lawyer asked for them. My colleagues teased me for keeping certified copies of everything. My father called it an obsession. My mother called it one of my little habits. My sister, Vanessa, once told a table full of relatives that I had built an entire career around alphabetizing things no one cared about. Everyone laughed. I did too. I had learned early that laughing along shortened the humiliation. The truth was, I trusted documents because documents did not change their story depending on who was listening. My family did. My father, Martin Caldwell, owned Caldwell Architectural Millwork, a company that designed custom interiors for luxury hotels, private clubs, and expensive homes. He had built it from a two-room workshop into a business with more than 80 employees and clients in 4 states. He was intelligent, disciplined, and admired. He also believed every person in his life should fit neatly into the picture he had created. My mother, Cynthia, managed that picture. She planned charity dinners, photographed family holidays, selected coordinated outfits for Christmas cards, and corrected anyone who mentioned an inconvenient fact in public. Vanessa was the centerpiece. She was 6 years younger than I was, beautiful in the effortless way my mother considered a moral achievement, and gifted at making people feel they had been chosen simply because she remembered their name. She worked at my father's company as director of brand partnerships, though no one could clearly explain what that meant. Her real job was visibility. Vanessa attended design expos, posted photographs from private showrooms, appeared beside my father at ribbon cuttings, and gave interviews about the company's commitment to craftsmanship. I handled records. She handled the frame. Growing up, I had been the careful one, the cautious one. The child who pointed out when the restaurant bill was wrong or when the school fundraiser totals did not match the deposit slip. Vanessa was the charming one. When she broke a lamp, I was accused of provoking her. When she forgot assignments, I was told I should have reminded her. When she borrowed my clothes and damaged them, my mother said I was too attached to things. By the time I was 12, I understood my role. Vanessa was protected from consequences. I was used to absorb them. That pattern followed us into adulthood, refined and polished like one of my father's walnut conference tables. My successes were treated as evidence that I did not need encouragement. Vanessa's smallest accomplishments required champagne. When I earned a master's degree in information governance while working full-time, my parents sent flowers 3 days late. When Vanessa reached 50,000 followers on social media, they rented a private room at a waterfront restaurant. I told myself none of it mattered. Then I met Nathan. Nathan Pierce was a project manager for a commercial construction company that occasionally hired Caldwell Millwork. He was 43, thoughtful, quietly funny, and patient with silences. He understood why I checked the stove twice before leaving home and why I saved warranty receipts in labeled folders. He said my attention to detail made him feel safe. No one had ever described it that way before. We dated for nearly 3 years. Nathan proposed on an overcast Saturday morning at the Botanical Gardens, near a stone bridge where we had taken shelter during our second date. There was no photographer hiding nearby. No crowd, no performance. Just Nathan, holding a ring with trembling fingers, telling me that life with me felt honest. I said yes before he finished asking. The following evening, my parents hosted dinner at their house. Vanessa arrived 40 minutes late wearing cream silk and carrying a bottle of champagne more expensive than my first monthly mortgage payment. She hugged me, examined the ring, and said, "It's very you." I knew what she meant. Simple, modest, not worth envying. My mother immediately began discussing venues. My father asked Nathan whether he planned to remain with his current company. Nathan said he had no immediate plans to leave. My father leaned back in his chair and studied him. "Nathan has leadership potential," he said. It sounded complimentary. But my father rarely gave compliments without attaching a purpose. Vanessa lifted her glass. "To my sister," she said, smiling at me, "proof that there really is someone for everyone." My mother laughed too loudly. Nathan did not. Under the table, he rested his hand over mine. That small act should have reassured me. Instead, I remember feeling something shift, a draft through a closed room. The next morning, I received a call from my father's executive assistant, Marisol. She sounded embarrassed. "Rachel, I think I included one of Martin's company files with the family foundation documents you requested." I had been helping my mother update the record book for the Caldwell Family Arts Fund, a small charitable foundation mostly used to sponsor museum events and design scholarships. Marisol had sent me a courier envelope containing meeting minutes, donation receipts, and vendor agreements. I had not opened it yet. "I can bring the file back after work," I said. "Thank you. It should be in a gray folder marked Executive Recruitment. Please don't scan it." "Martin will have my head." I promised I would not. I opened the envelope at my dining room table. The gray folder was near the bottom. I intended to remove it without looking inside. Then, a cream-colored page slipped loose and landed face-up beside my hand. At the top was the Caldwell Millwork letterhead. Below it was Nathan's full name. The document was titled Confidential Executive Employment Proposal. The position was Vice President of Operations. The base salary was $240,000. There was a performance bonus, a company vehicle, equity eligibility, and a relocation allowance even though Nathan lived only 12 miles away. The offer was contingent upon several conditions. The first involved standard background and reference checks. The second required Nathan to end any personal relationship that could create what the proposal called future instability within the Caldwell family leadership structure. The third condition was not written in legal language. It was typed beneath the others in my father's unmistakable style. The company's long-term succession plan would be best served by a marital union between Nathan Pierce and Vanessa Caldwell. I read the sentence 3 times. There are moments when the mind protects itself by becoming technical. I noticed the inconsistent spacing, the missing comma after Nathan's name, the fact that the proposal had been prepared on company letterhead but had no document control number. I noticed everything except what it meant. Then I saw the attached note. "Nathan, this is a serious offer. Vanessa understands the demands of this life and belongs in the circles where Caldwell Millwork is headed. Rachel does not. You have the ability to become part of something significant, but you need to consider whether loyalty to a recent engagement is worth sacrificing your future. We can discuss privately." Martin at the bottom, in blue ink, my father had written a date, time, and location. Tuesday, 7:30 a.m., the private dining room at the Harbor Club. The meeting had taken place that morning. I looked at the clock. It was almost 11. My first instinct was to call Nathan. My second was to call my father. Instead, I photographed every page, front and back. Then I checked the folder index. The proposal was listed as Draft 3. There had been at least 2 earlier versions. Behind it were salary comparisons, an organizational chart, and a succession planning memo. Nathan's name appeared where the chief operating officer's name had been crossed out. Vanessa's name appeared beside his under a handwritten heading, Future Public Leadership. My own name appeared nowhere. I returned the original documents to the folder, drove them to my father's office, and handed them to Marisol. She thanked me repeatedly. I said nothing about what I had seen. At work, I spent the afternoon reviewing files without absorbing a word. At 5:30, Nathan called. "Can I come over?" His voice was careful. I knew then. He arrived carrying takeout from the Thai restaurant near my house. He placed the bag on the kitchen counter as if this were an ordinary evening. Then he looked at my face. "You know," I saw the proposal. He closed his eyes briefly. "I was going to tell you." "When?" "Tonight. After you had time to decide, his jaw tightened. That isn't fair. Fairness was a word my family used when they wanted to move the discussion away from facts. I sat at the table. Did you meet with him? Yes. Was Vanessa there? Nathan hesitated. That was the answer. She joined us near the end. I folded my hands to keep them still. What did she say? She said your father had been worried about the company's future. She said he respected me. She said she and I would make sense professionally. Professionally. She also said she didn't expect an answer immediately. I looked at the man I had planned to marry. And what did you say? I said I was engaged to you. That wasn't my question. Nathan walked to the window. For nearly 3 years, I had believed his quietness was steadiness. That evening, it felt like concealment. He offered me an opportunity I'd never have otherwise, he said. I listened. That doesn't mean I accepted. Did you refuse? No, one syllable, clean and exact. I understood then that betrayal often arrives before the final act. Sometimes it begins with consideration. Nathan told me he had been stunned, flattered, insulted on my behalf, confused about what refusing might do to his company's relationship with Caldwell Millwork. Every explanation was plausible. That made it worse. He asked for 2 days. I gave him his ring back. He stared at it in my palm. Rachel, don't do this because of one meeting. I'm not ending our engagement because my father made an offer. Then why? Because you're still thinking about it. He did not take the ring at first. Eventually, he did. After he left, I sat at the kitchen table until the food went cold. The next morning, my mother called. She did not ask how I was. She said, "Your father tells me you may be overreacting to a business conversation." That was how quickly the frame had been constructed, not an attempt to purchase my fiancé, a business conversation. I ended the engagement. You embarrassed Nathan. I almost laughed. Did Vanessa tell you that? Your sister is devastated by all this hostility. She didn't ask for your father to recognize that she and Nathan are better suited. There are sentences so cruel that they clarify a lifetime. I wrote hers down, not because I needed evidence, because I needed to see it outside my own head. My father called next. You had no right to open confidential company records. The proposal fell out of the folder. You should have stopped reading. You should not have offered my fiancé a promotion in exchange for marrying Vanessa. He exhaled as though I were being difficult in a meeting. You are reducing a complex succession issue to something emotional. It became emotional when you attached my engagement to an employment offer. Nathan is executive material. Vanessa understands how to support an executive. You have never wanted our lifestyle. Our lifestyle? The travel. The entertaining, the public obligations. You prefer your little files and your quiet house. My little files, my quiet house. The life I had built without asking him for anything. You decided I was unworthy of the future you imagined for him. I decided the company should not suffer because of sentiment. He said it calmly. That was my father's gift. He could make brutality sound administrative. Then he gave me an ultimatum. I was to return every copy of the proposal, sign a confidentiality agreement, and attend the Family Foundation's annual gala 6 weeks later without creating further embarrassment. If I did that, he said, we could move past the incident. If I did not, I would no longer be welcome at family events, and my position on the Foundation's advisory committee would be terminated. You were already replacing me, I said. What are you talking about? The Foundation records. Vanessa has been signing approvals under my committee code. Silence. I had noticed the discrepancy 2 weeks earlier, but assumed it was a clerical mistake. Now I wondered. My father's voice became colder. You are making accusations because you are hurt. No. I'm asking about a document. You always do this. Do what? Turn family matters into investigations. After the call, I opened the digital copies I had made from the Foundation packet. My advisory code appeared on 4 grant approvals I had never seen. 2 payments had gone to a consulting company called Vantage Social Strategies. The address belonged to a mailbox service. The registered owner was Vanessa. The payments totaled $86,000. The foundation was a non-profit entity. Vanessa was using it to pay her own company. I did not feel triumphant. I felt tired. The kind of tired that comes when a crack in the wall reveals the entire structure is unsound. I began gathering records, quietly. I downloaded the foundation's public tax filings. I requested certified copies of its incorporation documents and amendments. I reviewed meeting minutes, bank authorizations, conflict of interest policies, and vendor contracts. I compared signatures. The deeper I looked, the more I found. Vanessa's company had received payments for event promotion, donor outreach, branding consultation, and social media strategy. There were invoices, but several described work that had actually been performed by unpaid volunteers. One invoice billed the foundation $14,000 for museum reception the museum itself had funded. Another charged $9,500 for donor photography taken by an intern. My committee code had been used to approve the expenses. A scanned version of my signature appeared on 2 resolutions. I had not signed them. Then I found something larger. The foundation had purchased a restored 19th century estate known as Belmere House, supposedly to create an arts residency center. My father had announced the acquisition publicly. The annual gala would celebrate the project and launch a $3 million restoration campaign. According to press releases, the foundation owned the property free and clear. According to the deed, it did not own it at all. The deed named Caldwell Heritage Holdings, a private limited liability company. Its managers were my father and Vanessa. The foundation had transferred $740,000 toward the purchase, but title had been placed in the private company's name. The arrangement allowed my father and sister to control the property while using charitable donations to improve it. The gala was expected to raise the first $1 million. Donors believed they were restoring a nonprofit arts center. They were increasing the value of a private asset. That was not poor judgment. That was fraud. I hired an attorney named Miriam Shaw, a woman in her late 50s who listened without interrupting and took notes by hand. When I finished, she asked one question. "Does your father know you understand title records? He thinks I alphabetize folders." For the first time that week, I almost smiled. Miriam contacted a forensic accountant. We provided the state charity regulator with copies of the deeds, resolutions, invoices, and bank records available to me through my committee role. I did not post accusations online. I did not contact donors. I did not threaten my family. Paper is most powerful when it reaches the correct desk. Nathan called several times. I did not answer. Then he came to my house. He looked exhausted. I turned down the job. "You took 11 days. I made a mistake by not refusing immediately. Yes, I never intended to marry Vanessa, but you considered the life my father offered." He looked down. I considered the career. They were the same offer. He asked whether there was any path back. I told him no. He said my father had withdrawn several contracts from his employer after he refused. He wanted me to understand the pressure he had been under. I did understand. That was why I knew he was not the man for me. A person's character is rarely tested when the answer costs nothing. 3 weeks before the gala, my parents came to my house together. They had not done that in years. My mother wore pearls. My father carried a leather document case. They sat on my sofa like representatives from an institution negotiating with a difficult former employee. My father offered me a settlement. He would pay off my mortgage and provide an additional $150,000 if I signed a non-disclosure agreement, resigned from the foundation committee, and confirmed in writing that I had never authorized anyone to investigate the organization. I placed the agreement on the coffee table. "This says I must destroy all copies of foundation records. It protects the family." "No, it protects you." My mother leaned forward. "Rachel, think about what you're doing. Your father has employees. Your sister has built a public career. People depend on this family. Donors depend on the foundation. Vanessa made administrative mistakes. She paid herself $86,000. My mother's face changed. Not shock, calculation. "You don't know the context." "I know the invoices." My father's voice hardened. "You were given access to those records because you were trusted. I was given access because no one thought I mattered." He stood. "The gala will proceed. Belmere House will open. You will not interfere." I looked at him. Is that a request? It is your final opportunity to remain part of this family. For most of my life, that threat would have worked. Belonging had always been offered to me conditionally. Be quiet, be useful, do not correct the story. That afternoon, I understood that exile from a false picture was not punishment, it was release. The records have already been submitted, I said. My mother went pale. My father did not, he simply picked up the agreement. To whom? The people authorized to review them. He stared at me for a long moment. You have no idea what you've started. I know the filing date, the document numbers, and the statutory review period. For once, he had nothing to say. The gala was held at the Grand Marlow Hotel on a Saturday evening in October. 400 guests attended. There were florists, photographers, local television crews, design executives, museum trustees, and donors whose names appeared on hospital wings. A scale model of Belmere House stood beneath glass in the reception hall. Beside it, a gold plaque read, "A home for art, a legacy for generations." My father had instructed security not to admit me. He did not know I had received a separate invitation from Miriam. The state charity regulator had not yet announced a formal action. Investigators wanted to observe how the property and fundraising campaign were represented publicly. Miriam advised me to attend quietly and bring one item, a certified copy of the deed. I carried it in a Navy document envelope. My mother saw me first. Her smile remained fixed as she crossed the ballroom. You need to leave. I was invited. By whom? Before I could answer, Vanessa approached with a photographer trailing behind her. She wore a silver gown and diamonds borrowed from a jeweler sponsoring the event. For 1 second, irritation crossed her face. Then the camera lifted and she smiled. Rachel, she said warmly, I'm so glad you came. She embraced me for the photograph. Her mouth remained near my ear. Do not ruin this for me. The flash went off. I looked directly at the camera. I don't have to, she pulled back. What does that mean? But the photographer was already asking us to stand beside the Belmere model. The program began at 8. My father spoke about heritage. My mother spoke about community. Vanessa presented a glossy video showing artists painting in sunlit rooms that had not yet been restored. Then the auctioneer announced the capital campaign. A donor pledged $250,000. Another offered $100,000. Applause filled the ballroom. The frame was nearly complete. Then Miriam touched my arm. Now, at the front table sat Alina Price, chair of the Foundation's Independent Oversight Committee. She was a retired judge and one of the few board members my father did not control socially or financially. Until that evening, she had not been shown the full file. The regulator had requested that the certified deed be delivered directly to her before additional pledges were formally accepted. I walked along the edge of the room. No speech, no confrontation, no dramatic interruption. I reached Alina as the auctioneer prepared to open bidding on a weekend at Belmere House after its restoration. Judge Price, I said quietly. She turned. My name is Rachel Caldwell. I served on the advisory committee. I know who you are. I handed her the envelope. You need to read this before another donation is accepted. My father saw me. Even across the ballroom, I watched recognition move through his face. He stepped away from the podium. Alina opened the envelope. She read the first page, then the second. She removed her glasses, looked toward the model of Belmere House, and asked the Foundation's counsel to come to the table. The auctioneer continued speaking. Alina raised one hand. The Foundation's counsel walked quickly to the stage and whispered to him. The bidding stopped. The room did not erupt. It changed temperature. Conversations softened. People leaned toward one another. My father approached Alina. This is not the place, he said. She looked up at him. Did the Foundation purchase Belmere House? The acquisition involved a temporary holding structure. Did the Foundation purchase it? My father lowered his voice. We can discuss this privately. Donors are being asked to fund improvements to property titled to your private company. Several people nearby heard her. That was enough. The sentence moved outward through the tables, not loudly, but rapidly. A donor lowered her pledge card. A bank executive stood and walked toward the exit. The hotel's event coordinator stopped the credit card processing line. Vanessa came toward us, still smiling because cameras were present. "What's happening?" Elena handed the deed to the foundation's counsel. "Until ownership, expenditures, and representations to donors are reviewed, this campaign is suspended." Vanessa looked at my father, then at me. "You did this." "No," I said. "The deed did." A television reporter near the stage heard the exchange. My mother reached us seconds later. Her expression was composed, but one earring trembled against her neck. She took my arm. "You need to stop talking." I gently removed her hand. "I'm not the one making announcements." The foundation's counsel stepped onto the stage. He asked the guests to remain seated while a legal matter was addressed. No one remained seated. Within minutes, the ballroom dissolved into clusters of whispered conversations. Donors called advisors. Board members demanded documents. Reporters moved toward my father. The scale model of Belmere House remained under glass, glowing beneath carefully positioned lights. Perfect, impressive, and titled to someone else. Nathan was there. I had not known he would be. He stood near the back of the room beside two executives from his company. Our eyes met. He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Not approval. Recognition. I nodded once in return, then I left. The consequences did not arrive all at once. Real consequences rarely do. They came by certified mail, subpoena, resignation, audit, and silence. The state froze the foundation's accounts pending review. The Attorney General's Charitable Enforcement Division opened a formal investigation. 3 board members resigned within 48 hours. The bank suspended the Belmere Restoration credit line. My father stepped down temporarily as foundation president. Temporary became permanent. Forensic auditors found more than the payments I had identified. Over 4 years, foundation funds had covered travel, photography, private meals, design consultations for my parents' home, and improvements to Belmere House before ownership was transferred. Vanessa's company had received $214,000. Several invoices were duplicated. Others were backdated. My signature had been used 7 times. My committee code had been used on 17 approvals. Vanessa initially claimed she believed she had permission. Then investigators recovered emails in which she asked Marisol to run the approvals through Rachel's number because no one audits her section. That sentence ended her public career more efficiently than any accusation I could have made. Sponsors withdrew. Luxury brands deleted photographs. The design magazine that had profiled her removed the article from its website. My father's company lost several major clients, though it did not collapse. I was grateful for that. The employees had not committed his crimes. Under a negotiated agreement, my father repaid the foundation, relinquished control of Belmere House, paid civil penalties, and accepted a multi-year ban from managing charitable assets. Vanessa was charged with falsifying business records and misuse of charitable funds. She avoided prison through restitution, probation, and community service. Some viewers may think that was not enough. Perhaps it was not. But justice is not always a dramatic door closing. Sometimes it is the permanent loss of credibility. For people who live through appearances, that can feel like the deepest sentence. My mother never apologized. She sent one letter. It said I had destroyed the family over bookkeeping irregularities that could have been corrected privately. I filed the letter in a folder marked personal correspondence. I did not answer. Nathan wrote too. His letter was different. He admitted that when my father made the offer, part of him had imagined the office, the title, the house, and the status. He said he had told himself he was only listening, but listening had already required him to place a price beside our future. He did not ask me to forgive him. I appreciated that. Months later, I heard he had taken a position in another state. I hoped he became the person he had believed himself to be. I simply no longer needed to be present for the process. A year after the gala, Belmere House reopened under the ownership of a newly formed independent charitable trust. The first residency was awarded to a 70-year-old textile artist who had spent most of her life caring for other people and had never had a studio of her own. Elena Price sent me a photograph. The artist stood in a bright upstairs room beside a loom. On the back, a leaner had written, "This is what the paper protected." I framed that photograph, not because it showed my family losing, because it showed something true surviving them. These days, my life is smaller than the one my father imagined for Nathan. I still live in the same quiet house. I still label my files. I grow rosemary in a pot near the kitchen window and read on the back porch when it rains. On Sunday mornings, I make coffee and open the curtains slowly. There are no photographers, no speeches, no one arranging me inside a picture I did not choose. For years, I thought being left outside my family's frame meant I had failed to belong. Now I understand that some frames are built to hide what sits just beyond their edges. The debt, the favoritism, the forged signature, the daughter who was only welcome when she stayed quiet. A polished image can survive questions. It can survive gossip. It can even survive a lie if the lie is repeated often enough. But it cannot survive the right document placed in the right hands at the right time. So when someone tells you that you are too sensitive because you remember what happened, keep the record. When they say you are disloyal because you refuse to repeat their version, keep the record. When they tell you appearances matter more than truth, remember this: a frame can be carefully staged. Paper has no reason to pose.